Doing a fun, interesting little wet fly today. This is called the black and orange. This was requested by a longtime follower of Dressed Irons. It's a interesting little pattern, simple black duck wing, floss body, and a floss rib. There's a number of wet flies out there that have ribs that are made out of floss as opposed to a wire or a tinsel or anything. But this is just a fun, kind of interesting little fly. It's the black and orange. And I'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to start the black and orange by placing my hook in the vise. This is a Mustad 3399 standard wet fly hook. This is a size 8. Because we're using a light colored floss body, even though the orange isn't super light, I'm going to put down a base layer of white thread. So I'm starting with a 8/0 Uni-Thread in white. This will just keep the floss from getting a darker color when it gets in the water. I'll wrap my thread just past the point of the hook. And now I'll tie in my tail. My tail material on this is just a black hackle fibers. So I'm using a hen. You could use say a rooster saddle hackle or something like that, or even Schlappen, which is what we're using for the throat on this. But I'm just going to go ahead and use hen hackle here. It's nice and soft. I'll strip away the fluff from that feather, and I'll get, probably about 20-25 of those barbs perpendicular to the rachis of the feathers so that the tips are evened up. And I'll just strip those off. I'm going to measure those a shank length and tie those in. A couple of wraps to secure that. You'll notice that I am working down towards the bend of the hook just a little bit, and I'm going to trim this just a hair to help it taper a little bit more. I don't end up with kind of a bulge along the hook shank. At this point, I can tie in my rib. We're using a Danville 4-strand Rayon in black for the rib, but I'm only using one strand. So I will secure that under the thread, keeping it the length of the body. Put one wrap over that just to secure it, and I'll tie in the body. Body on this is also a Danville 4-strand Rayon floss. This is just an orange floss, and I'm only using 2 strands on this. If I were tying this a little bit on a larger hook, or if I wanted a little more bulk, I would use all 4, but I just want to keep this to a trim body, so I'm just going to use 2 strands. If I were, like, say, on a size 12 or maybe a 14, I might even use only 1 strand. Again, tie that in, pull it to the left so that it is the length of the body. Now I can wrap forward in touching turns. I don't want the tension to be so much that I'm twisting all of this material away from me. I just want to secure it down along the hook shank, keeping a nice even body. If you don't have exact perfect touching turns, that's okay. You don't want to get any wraps piled up in one area. I'm going to wrap down about to the eye and then come back a little bit That secures everything in. And now my thread is hanging where it needs to be to tie in those materials. I'm going to apply the body, which is the orange floss. Just wrapping this forward, I'm overlapping just a little bit. I get a nice uniform body as well as uniform color. Securing that in, I'll trim away the excess. Get ready to apply the rib. Part of the reason I use just one strand is it is very easy for me to twist up this one strand. I could lay this in flat if I want. If I like the look of a flatter rib such as this, you could certainly go ahead and do the rib so that it's nice and flat. I like it corded just a little bit. I like to have it a little narrower and almost look a little bit like it's raised up. So as I am wrapping this on, I'm twisting this right here, putting in a clockwise twist as I come around. Again, I'll twist this a little here, and then each time I come around, I'll give it a little bit more twist. So I keep that floss a little bit narrower, looking a little rounder. Get 5 wraps in. I'll secure that to the hook shank. You want to make certain you don't get too many wraps in up front as you secure your materials down, because you don't want to bulk that up too much. Matter of fact, I'm going to take a couple off there because here I'm going to change my thread. I'm going to switch to Uni-Thread 8.0 in black so that the resulting head of the fly will be black. The white is no longer needed. So I'll secure the white and the tag for the black, and I'll trim those off. And we'll tie in our throat. As I had mentioned before, the throat on this is going to be made from Schlappen. This is just some strung Schlappen here. You're going to pick out a broad feather. You're looking for these fibers right here, that when you pull those out, you can get some that are nice and even and long. The longer they are, the easier it is to tie them in. So the fluffy downy feathers here I don't need. I'm going to strip those away. I should say the downy barbs, because they're actually part of the feather. And then, as I said, I'm going to, again, getting about 20, 25 or so of these barbs together. I want to try and get them more or less perpendicular to the rachis so that the tips are nice and even, and I'll peel those off. When I bring these together, I kind of want to fold or roll them a little bit. I don't want to have these in a nice tight clump, because what I'm looking for is for them to spread out a little bit. Now that's a little thin for me, so I'm going to take just a little bit more off of here and match that up. There we go. I'm going to hold these up so the tips are just past the point, maybe somewhere past the point to the barb. Pinching those underneath, I'll do a pinch and loop wrap here to secure those in. Then I can trim away the excess. Come down to the eye of the hook and back. I'm going to smooth all of this off just so that I have a nice platform for the wing. The wing is, I'm making the wing out of duck quill. You could use some goose shoulder if you wanted. I think it's even, some people have made it out of like primary feathers from crow and things like that. But these are just dyed duck primary feathers. Cut a couple of slips out here, and I've got them pretty much matched up, but I wanted to show you something. I've got one of them, I intentionally cut a little wider than the other. Now the one on my side here is intentionally cut a little bit wider. And the reason for that is that I've got some of the barbs right here are broken. So I cut it a little bit wider, knowing that I would match up this side of the slips. And then just with my bodkin, I can reach in here and take out what's not needed. And it also gets rid of those broken barbs right there. Once you have those tips all matched up, you place these on top of the fly. I want the tip of the wing to go down about halfway down the tail. And then using a pinching loop, I'll bring that wing down to the hook shank. Another pinch and loop to secure. And I'll put in a few extra wraps to make certain that wing is nice and secure. Check it out on both sides. That looks pretty good. And I'll trim away the excess. Bringing my thread to the eye of the hook, I'll work backwards, just covering up those cut butt ends of those barbs for the wing. And I just want to kind of smooth the head off here so that I have a nice transition. Five or six turn whip finish. We'll secure that. And our black and orange is almost done. Put a little drop of head cement on the sides here. Let that soak down in. And in just a few minutes, I will take some black lacquer and I will then coat the head of that so that it has a nice glossy black finish to it. But that's the black and orange. Fun, interesting fly. Has some simple techniques as far as a wet fly goes. It's got all the pieces and parts of a typical wet fly, but there's some interesting little techniques with the floss and the rib there. I hope you enjoyed that. That's the black and orange. Thanks for joining me at Devise today. I hope you learned at least a new pattern, if not a new technique, maybe a tip or trick here and there. If you have any questions about this fly or any of the techniques used in constructing this pattern, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you go to the trouble to ask a question, I'll go to the trouble to answer it. If you'd like to help dressed irons, please share this video with your friends and anybody you think that might enjoy this pattern. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong.